Welcome to Caleb Can't Read. I'm Jordan Rabel, and I'm congested. I have a little bit of a sickness, a little bit of a cold going on. I am not down with this sickness, but neither is Caleb, it turns out. He actually refused to record this week because he has weak genes and did not want to catch a cold. So we're actually going to release an episode that we had recorded sometime last year. So I tried to cut out bits that maybe didn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense in context of, today's time and everything. But hey, we'll see if I made any mistakes. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Enjoy this episode. Oh, and Caleb's not here, so I can actually press some of these buttons. Let's see. Yeah, that's a good one. I like that one. He doesn't like this one. And I feel like we could really use that one a lot, We could have used that during the Unfrank episode. Yeah. Well, all right. Enjoy the episode. Welcome to Caleb Can't Read. I'm Jordan Rabel.
I'm Caleb Terrence.
Listen to my soothing fucking voice as I go over this. Mm-hmm. Well, let's begin then, shall we?
Yeah, fucking do it. What do you...
I say it before each thing, all right?
I didn't notice. It's not an important detail. Please just read.
William Luther Pierce III was born September 11th, 1933 in Atlanta, Georgia, to his mother Marguerite, who was a native of the state, and his father, William Luther Pierce II, from Virginia. Now, William III's family was Presbyterian by nature and had a proud heritage down his mother's line you could trace back to the Alabama governor during the Civil War, Thomas H. Watts.
Yeah, it's a little bit troubling if there's a proud heritage from Alabama.
Who was publicly pre-Union in the beginning, but by the end of the war was arrested for treason for being the Attorney General to the Confederates. Originally a prominent Southern household, Marguerite's family was very much working class after the Civil War. By the time William Pierce III was 10 years old, his father was killed in a car accident. And after that, William, his mother, and his little brother bounced around the South a little before finally landing in Dallas, Texas. Now, William the Younger was actually a very bright student. He even managed to skip a grade at one point. But regardless of his high marks, William Pierce decided to spend his last 2 years of high school at the Allen Military Academy in Bryan, Texas. You see, he was a fan of all sciences: rockets, chemistry, electronics.
Eugenics?
You're jumping the line.
You said he was bad, okay? I'm just filling it in already. You're not going to take me off guard here.
But all this stemmed probably from his love of science fiction. But the only way he'd be able to get a more hands-on experience at this point was at a military academy. So this made sense. Now, once he graduated from Allen in 1951, Pierce worked in an oil field doing relatively minor work. This was all just entry-level stuff. But with his background in engineering, he'd be able to climb the ranks pretty quick and eventually make buckin' bank. However, after only a short time in the field, a pipe about 4 inches in length fell off a rig and managed to crush his hand. And as you know, manual labor is better off when a guy has 2 working hands.
Yeah.
So,
unfortunately, like that.
I think I wrote it specifically because of that.
Fuck you.
So unfortunately, his time in the oil fields was over before it truly began. Now, instead of staying a shoe salesman like he was after the accident, Pierce opted to go back to school, earning a scholarship that would give him admission to Rice University in Houston, tuition free. And this place is huge when it comes to research and sciences. Getting into this school is actually harder than paying off the loans themselves. This is for people who will be astronauts and nuclear scientists, not the people who grow up wanting to be them. And when Pierce went there, the university still had a creed that it went by: to admit and educate, quote, the white inhabitants of Houston and the state of Texas.
Oh.
There wouldn't be a black student admitted to the university until 1963. And you know what? I'm sure William Pierce was just fine with that.
Oh, we doing that with this guy?
Now, sometime while Pierce was still touring schools, he fell in love with a mathematician named Patricia at the California Institute of Technology. They married in 1957 and had twin boys just a few years later in 1960. And his kids are fucking smart, too, just like he was. One grew up to be an aerospace engineer, and the other became a computer scientist.
They're still fucking squares, though.
Sure. They're making more than you and I in a week.
At what cost?
Living with him, I don't know.
What is the true cost there?
Well, luckily, neither one of these guys ended up like Pierce in any other way.
Oh, okay, cool. Never mind.
Yeah. No, I went a little bit into a couple of interviews with his son, and good on him. Pierce earned his bachelor's in physics while at Rice University before moving on to the University of Colorado, where he'd earned his doctorate in 1962. From there, he went to Oregon State University to teach physics as an assistant professor from 62 until 65.
Oh, we're back to the Oregon colleges.
Where did you think a guy like this would end up? Of course he's in Oregon. Now, to shift gears a little bit, let me tell you about the John Birch Society. The society had been recently established at this time, back in 1958. It was named after Baptist minister John Birch, who was a captain in the Air Force during World War II. About 10 days after the surrender of Japan, he and a group of his men were sent from where they were stationed in China to go up north and capture a couple of Japanese officials still in the area. Well, when the group came upon a crowd of communist insurgents, they ordered John to remove his sidearm to allow them to pass. He refused. So he was beaten, shot, and bayoneted. Overall, a really stupid and senseless death that unfortunately happens way too often in many wars throughout history. However, to a small group of people who didn't even know John, he was the first casualty in World War III in our battle against the communists. As their martyr, this group named their anti-communist organization the John Birch Society in his honor. Was John Birch even anti-communist? Who knows, but the founders of the John Birch Society sure thought so. Even if the people who actually knew him say he would have absolutely hated that this is how his name got carried on. In a 1964 interview with Playboy magazine, Ayn Rand had this to say, quote, "I consider the Birch Society futile because they are not for capitalism and merely against communism. I gather they believe that the disastrous state of today's world is caused by a communist conspiracy. This is childishly naive and superficial. No country can be destroyed by a mere conspiracy. It can be destroyed only by ideas." Because of course he fucking did.
Shut the fuck up, Ayn Rand.
I gotta hit this real quick.
That's really all I got to.
Mm-hmm. I wish that there were fewer interviews with Ayn Rand.
Well, I mean, when you're a grifter, I mean, you gotta be loud and just kind of like screech about shit, right? But this isn't about her. This is about...
You said you'd pay me $30, or I could pay you $20 worth of amphetamines. Okay. Anyway, the John Birch Society is still very much around and kicking today, mostly trying to get Ron Paul elected as president, while also being a favorite organization to people like Alex Jones and Donald Trump. Careful. In fact, the John Birch Society had their membership numbers jump during the Trump administration. I'm telling you all of this to give you an idea of just how far right this group really is, and to give you an idea of what kind of person William Pierce was. Because when he attended the society in 1962, he left almost immediately because the John Birch Society were too liberal for his tastes.
I wasn't off on the eugenics, was it?
No.
No, we're going.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Which I would like to remind anybody, I mean, everyone knows eugenics is just the whole science, it's pseudoscience of, we're different genetically and DNA.
The blue in your eyes
whatever.
really shined through there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I love talking about this. But
that.
Watch out for my mustache just starts to shrink to a little toothbrush. And it's just the study of how, people of different races, we're not different races, we're actually different species. And it was just a nice little Nazi way of saying that, the whites were better than the blacks or anybody else thereof.
You know, the whole Hollywood thing where they bust out the measuring tools to see if you're a Jew and shit?
Yeah. But I would like to point out this is 1962
Probably
and this
wasn't a Hollywood thing, actually. Move on. Sorry.
What movie were you watching where they were measuring Jew skulls?
What's that one with the fucking... It's like Catch Me If You Can, but with the Holocaust. No.
Wasn't everyone running from the Holocaust? What the fuck are you talking about?
That was a very, very poor
The
way to describe that.
Schindler's List.
No.
I don't know.
It's the one with. It's an older movie. It's the one with the young boy who pretends to be a Nazi to get out of getting captured by the Germans.
Jojo Rabbit?
No.
Life is Beautiful.
Is that it?
It's like a 70s Italian film.
We need to fucking look this. No, it's not Life is Beautiful either. You showed me that one.
Okay.
No, it's not either.
You fell asleep.
Well, yeah, it was.
No. We're going to finish.
Did you think maybe I was just tired? I'm tired tonight too, okay?
I just wanted to point out that at this point in 1962, eugenics has been discounted for a very long time. Okay. It wasn't up for very long.
But he's just holding it down.
Of course. Okay. He's going to die on this hill. It's like a molehill, but he's there, pecker in the ground.
We've already died on the hill, bud.
Well, about the John Birch Society and William Pierce being there, specifically, he felt that while their goal of eradicating communists was great, yes, they weren't focused enough on the race issue. In particular, the ever-growing civil rights movement. To Pierce, the John Birch Society was too busy playing with the pawns in the rising Vietnam conflict, you know? But the communists are just the distraction. The real orchestrators, according to Pierce, were, yes, the Jews.
All right, hang on, guys. I don't think these communists are a threat. All right, I'm listening. It's actually... God damn it!
Every time! Now, of course, a guy like this would have one true aspiration. Politics. So in order to fund his future campaign, William Pierce left his job at OSU and went to work as a senior researcher for aerospace manufacturer Pratt &
surprised
Whitney
it wasn't
in
George
Connecticut.
Fox. Was that around then?
I don't fucking know. Yeah, it was called the John Birch University back then. So remember, dumbass as he may be, he is a very smart dumbass. So sometime after his work in Connecticut, Pierce moved closer to the campaign trail, to Washington, D.C. And it was here...
It's not called being a smart dumbass. It's called being an asshole.
Oh, okay, there you go. And it was here he met a man named George Lincoln Rockwell. No relation. Now, to give you a little idea as to Rockwell's history, George was a former Navy officer, and as decorated of a veteran as he was, ultimately had to be let go because of his extremist political views. And it's not like there aren't other extremists in the military. George just wouldn't shut the fuck up about it. But according to George, he wasn't let go because of some bullshit about him speaking the truth. It was a Jewish conspiracy. Now, George was a big fan of Douglas MacArthur and his hatred for commies, of course. So much so that George started smoking out of a corncob pipe just like MacArthur did. And although a staunch Holocaust denier, George was also, of course, a big admirer of Adolf Hitler.
Damn, dude, like when I fuck up, I just like lie and say my car broke down or something. This guy makes a whole Jew conspiracy out of...
Well, it's weird as shit to me, too. Like, just pick a fucking lane. Like, I love MacArthur, and I also love Hitler. Like, you either admire Hitler or the guy who's a part of a system that brought down Hitler. Regardless, George Rockwell was such a fanboy to the Fuhrer that the honeymoon for his second marriage consisted of visiting the homes and bunkers which Adolf once occupied. How fucking romantic.
Jesus Christ.
His second honeymoon.
They do us a favor and fucking, like, shoot themselves in the face and then jump in a fire. Like...
Finish the journey, George. Ironically, George Rockwell was also a fan of Malcolm X because at the time, both of them believed in racial segregation. When the Freedom Riders were making a tour of the South to desegregate bus stations, Rockwell followed them in a Volkswagen van he plastered with white supremacist slogans and called it the Hate Bus. He even had a record label that, through mail order, would send you records full of songs that all had the N-word somewhere in the title.
This guy is just like 5 guys from B in a time machine.
Performed by a band called Otis Cochran and the Three Bigots.
Did he pay them? Did he fucking have to pay them? Did they wear
like
masks?
He's got to be one of them.
What did you say? Otis Cochran and the Bigots?
The Three Bigots.
Otis Cochran and the Three Bigots?
Go ahead and pause it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's
Any pictures, though?
That's pretty bad.
Well, I mean, all we saw were some
what did you
ads.
think it was? It's a bunch of white dudes.
Let me see.
But at the same time,
I mean, if I'm not impressed, I
ads
get that too. But
amazing.
Yeah, the ads say "Hatin' Nanny"
for Otis Cochran and the three bigots.
It's pronounced Cochran.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, CH. That can give you a "k" sound
anyway,
too.
Listeners, if you're following along with us, go ahead and pause it and look that up for yourself.
Otis Cochran and the three
Holy
bigots.
shit, that one has MLK in it.
What? Let me see.
Yeah, that's one of the most... What?
Show me.
And... Oh, wow.
Oh.
Look what's next to him. That's a gorilla.
Oh, fucking goddamn it.
Dude.
That's
all right. Fucked up.
So... Put the phone down. It's going to get worse as you go on. Come on.
Holy shit.
Put it down, goddammit.
Jesus. Well, okay, no, this guy's doing a cover. Should we pause again?
No.
Okay.
I don't want to hear it.
Fuck. That looks like it was shot in, like, the 2010s.
Very well could be.
Holy fucking damn, dude.
Well, during a debate with a Black Panther, George Rockwell heard his opponent use the term Black Power, to which he responded and coined the phrase White Power. And by the time William Pierce met George Rockwell, he had just become the founder of the American Nazi Party. Now, there's my pen. During their partnership in D.C., Pierce had really just kind of kept his head down. Not because he was afraid of any ramifications to his actions, but because he was focused on being the editor for the American Nazi Party's newsletter, The National Socialist World, which is...
Fuck off with your name. Get the fuck out of here. Stop it.
Just call it the Nationalist World, you know? Don't put socialist in there.
Man.
Stop it. But on August 25th, 1967, George Lincoln Rockwell was shot and killed outside a laundromat by a former member of his party and former cartoonist for his newsletter. This man had been kicked out of previous meetings for supposedly trying to push a more Marxist-leaning ideology to the group. When told about his death, Rockwell's father said, quote, "I am not surprised at all. I've expected it for quite some time."
My son was kind of a piece of shit. Imagine being that done with your son.
Right.
Like,
I mean, he ain't
holy
special.
fuck.
A lot of people are like that with their parents, their grandparents, their aunts and uncles. It's like, yeah, you could do that with your son too. Like, I tried.
I tried to make him not a Nazi piece of shit, but...
Pretty sure I fought in that war.
Jesus.
Rockwell's assassin is still alive, by the way, and doing pretty good. Really hated who he used to be, but still managed to kill a Nazi, so I say good for him. Anyway, Rockwell's parents wanted to just have a private burial for their son near their home, but when the American Nazi Party, who are now calling themselves the National Socialist White People's Party, since they felt the Nazis were just too encroaching on their image, harassed Rockwell's parents into giving them his corpse. And eventually...
No, everybody, I feel like if we say Nazi, they're going to associate us with, like, you know,
Exactly.
the Nazi party.
No, they really did. They were like, nah, that's too far.
We just need to work on our image a little bit more, all right? Everybody go home and brainstorm about that. Okay, white power!
Yeah, I like how they do the National Socialist thing, which if you were a moron and didn't know what, like, the Nazi party stood for, kind of thing, like their abbreviations and whatnot, then you'd be like, oh, okay, the National Socialist People's Party. Okay, oh, they put White People's Party in there. Ah, like, it's not helping. And eventually, George Rockwell's parents were just like, fuck it, take the bastard, who cares? So they forked over his body to the Nazi party.
Oh.
Now remember, George Rockwell was a veteran of the Navy, so he was accepted to be buried at Culpeper National Cemetery in Virginia, so long as you followed the rules of not showing off any Nazi shit while you were there. But when 50 or so people showed up for his funeral wearing swastikas, the gates were
I
closed.
can't take off a tattoo.
Just wear an armband or something, sir, to cover it. Oh, fuck!
It's like, Jesus, God, dude.
This resulted in a 5-hour
Little
standoff.
patches of duct tape all over their faces.
A 5-hour standoff where the roads were blocked by a Nazi procession and the hearse with Rockwell's body was resting on train tracks blocked by the other cars and almost got hit by a train. Honestly, I think that would have been...
The conductor's just, like, speeding up. He's been briefed. It's just like...
This is fine.
He's like, yeah, this is worth derailing this sumbitch.
The next day, his body was just cremated privately elsewhere. No way, the Nazis gave up? Well, after George Rockwell's death, William Pierce moved on from the American Nazi Party to run presidential campaigns for then governor of Alabama, George Wallace, who was famous for his slogan, "Segregation now, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever." In order to keep that promise, Wallace literally stood in the doorway of the University of Alabama to block 2 black students from walking in the front door. And I mean, of course he lost. Not just that fight, but his presidential run as well.
Yeah, I mean, did they just like, I don't know, did they just kind of look at him and like, all right, and then go through another door? Like,
he wanted papers there and shit, and we're just like, see, I'm doing what I promised, and of course the black students knew, like, you want to just walk in through the gym? But that's also an image for them too. Like, of course, during the most segregated place in this time in history, why would you do what this jackass says and go use the back entrance instead?
Yeah,
you stand there and you say,
gotta go through the door.
You're gonna move. We will take however long it needs to be, baby. We're walking in.
Yeah.
And it happened. He was forcibly removed by the sheriff.
Good.
Yeah. That sheriff had a great career. People really liked him. In 1970, William Pierce met a man named Willis Carto, who would himself go on to be a prolific author in the Holocaust denial genre. Carto saw Pierce and this group of like-minded, race-hating dipshits from the George Wallace campaign packing up their things and said, "Wait, we're all racist here. The internet's not invented yet, so how are we supposed to stay in touch if you walk out now? I just created a group called the National Youth Alliance, and I want all of you to join." Well, Pierce did join, and he and Carto got along great.
How old is Pierce at this point?
Let's see, 1970, so...
You want to pause?
He was born in 1933, so he's 37.
Any red flags there on him being around the Nazi
Yeah, there's
youths?
a lot of red flags. There's just a little white circle in there with a weird symbol in the middle.
Okay.
And while Pierce was very much a prominent figure in this group, it was Carto who was really the head of things. However, only a year after forming the National Youth Alliance, Carto accused Pierce of stealing his mailing list of National Youth Alliance members and sending them anti-Carto propaganda.
How dare he take even part of my savior's name?
But did Pierce really? Well, let's look at the possibilities. Either Willis Carto, a right-wing maniac and conspiracy theorist, was paranoid enough to believe his second-in-command was planning a mutiny against him, or William Pierce, a hateful spigot of racism, tried to overthrow his boss so he could wear the crown of most hated man in America. Basically, what I'm saying is, who cares? Both these guys are fucking idiots.
Yeah, don't matter.
Now, the rift between Pierce and Carto would eventually lead to Pierce creating his own organization in 1974 called the National Alliance. He just dropped the youth part from the National Youth Alliance because he's a lazy writer. His main supporter through his years in this organization is a man named Revillo Oliver. Revillo is just Oliver backwards, by the way, and seemingly his actual legal name.
Is he from the South?
No, his parents were just nuts.
Okay.
And he apparently had a very hard time getting the other Nazis to trust him because the name sounds so made up. My name's Oliver. Okay, what's your first name? Shit, that was my first name. What do I give him? Revello. Anyway.
Let me see your penis. What? Let me see your penis.
Oliver himself used to be a member of the John Birch Society before he was kicked out for insinuating that the head of the society was merely a puppet being run by, quote, a committee of Jews. Actually, Oliver ended up working with both sides of the Pierce-Carto rift. While he helped William Pierce get the National Alliance on its legs, he also wrote for Carto and his Holocaust Denial Publishing Company, of which there were many different publishing companies Carto had to set up, because they kept getting sued by Holocaust survivors for libel, and they lost every single time.
Yeah, that's pretty in stone.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I was reading about how one of these times Carto's defense attorney afterwards was very publicly like, I am so sorry that this is my job sometimes. I am not a fucking dickhead, I swear to God. Literally my job. Sorry, guys, sorry. Well, officially organized in
I'm a public attorney. No one else would take him. Please. Please stop throwing bricks through my windows. I have a family. This is a very awkward position for me.
Officially organized in 1974, the National Alliance wasn't to William Pierce just some neo-Nazi group. They were a political movement that would free the minds of white Americans.
Yeah,
that would
neo-Nazi group.
That would eventually overthrow the U.S. government.
Wow. It's amazing what white people can get away with. Like, they can just, like, proclaim that shit and be fucking fine.
Wait, 2021.
Yeah, they still do the same thing. Are you fucking kidding me? Like,
how long was it this year?
What? What about it?
The January 6th thing? Or was that... No, that was this year. Fuck, it hasn't even been a year.
What thing?
The January 6th insurrection at the Capitol. Yeah. Boy, look at that. Just a bunch of white people just gathering. It was a totally just... hey, nobody planned it. Shit.
There's like literal video evidence of him like fucking inciting it, and it's like, really? Like the guy, yeah, I know he's rich. He's not like he has a private military. Are you honestly fucking telling me we can't go fucking get him for like literally trying to overthrow our government?
He kind of sort of has a private military. They're just the Proud Boys, and he doesn't know a single one of them. But you know what? If you're going to be like, I'll take a bullet for you, he's going to be like, yeah, good job. Get in front there. You got to take a few.
I mean, I know some of those guys are like legitimately scary, but it's not like the fucking U.S. military.
Yeah, they're not U.S. military scary.
No, a lot of them are. A lot of them are ex-military.
Oh, sure.
You should not.
As an individual, and maybe even in a small group. But you're not you're actually technically now a civilian. And you're now a moving target. Well, the organization was formed in Hillsborough, West Virginia, where Pierce would live until the day he died. And we've got a pretty racist Hillsborough, too. Imagine. Harkening back to his love of science fiction.
Pretty racist whole country, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
No. Not fucking Oregon.
Harkening back to his love of science fiction, William Pierce began writing fiction in his magazine called Attack, with an exclamation point.
Ooh.
Specifically, he was serializing a story called The Turner Diaries between 1975 and 1978.
Where have I heard this before?
Oh, yeah, it might come back to you here in a moment.
All right.
Once the story was completed, his echo chamber of dumb shits convinced him that the story was so good, he should release it in paperback to reach a wider audience. Though he printed the story with the pseudonym Andrew MacDonald, this book would be William Pierce's crowning achievement. This is the unfortunate story of the Turner Diaries. I remember back when there were gun shows that coronavirus wasn't a thing, you know? And it was like, yeah, it's still full of white nationalists and shit, but I was mostly like, I went with my parents to get, like, they were like, hey, go pick something out at a gun show. No, actually, they were mostly there for the other knickknacks that people had.
Gun knickknacks?
Yeah, like blow dart stuff, you know? Or like mini crossbows. I don't know. They had fun.
Careful with the blow dart guns. They'll go backwards too. Just FYI.
We know. But we got ones with little filters on it.
Oh, good.
So,
you're heavy enough breather. You might break that cocksucker.
we would kill spiders with those things. It was actually...
Kill spiders with dart guns?
Yeah. It was fantastic. It was a lot of fun.
I had one... when I was a teenager, or my buddy had one, and we were all sitting around drinking in his room, and then one of my friends kind of like reared it up and then shot it into my arm. The big thick needle one, the big danger boy. And I was like, huh.
We're all danger boys. They can take your eye out.
I was like, huh. And then I pulled it out of my arm, and then I didn't feel my arm for like 2 months.
Good. Oh, it hit a nerve. I'm so happy for you. No, I was, my parents would mostly say like, all right, go pick something out, which seems like the most white suburban American thing to tell your child at a gun show.
No safer place than the gun show.
I usually just got throwing stars and shit that I thought were neat.
Stars?
Yeah.
None of them watched South Park? Like,
oh, that episode wasn't out yet.
Oh, damn.
I know.
You were that fucking
I was
young.
very young.
Okay.
I was like 6 or 7.
Ninja star!
But of course, every once in a while, you'd run into somebody a little too unironically selling Nazi memorabilia, and I'm pretty certain that, you know, like there was a booth where I was like, oh, cool, it's full of books. And I went over and I was like, I haven't heard of any of these guys. And I am almost certain I've seen the Turner Diaries there before. And this, I mean, it was probably like, it could be a false memory to me, but really, I don't think it's too far-fetched. So here we go. The book itself is framed as you, the reader,
looking over the diary of a man named Earl Turner.
Phase 1, you're white. Oh, shucks.
Actually,
I can't do this.
You absolutely are in this scenario. As you sit in your comfy white American armchair in the year 2099, you look at what turned the world around from the interracial hellhole it once was to this, the Aryan utopia it is today. 106 years ago, in 1993. But the story begins in 1991 with Earl Turner, our hero and white nationalist, complaining of the new law which has allowed the government to take away everyone's guns. This is the final straw for Earl and his buddies. Why the fuck did he name him Earl? Who agreed?
He wanted everybody... Look, he just wants everyone to know, like, no question, that's a white guy.
I'm a proud black man named Earl. Yeah.
Actually, maybe.
How many of them do you think know how to read?
Let's Google it. Pause. Okay, pause wasn't necessary. Let's...
Oh, fuck, that was a hurtful one. I choked that bitch right down.
Also, just that whole idea of, like, the guns being taken away and that's the last straw. Like, yo, homie, you don't... The whole point of what you're referencing is being able to, like, fight back against the military. And in that sense, like, no, dude, you are not...
doesn't need to take your guns.
You are not allowed to have the same equipment that the U.S. military fucking has. Like, you and your AR-15s are not... Like, that right's already gone.
Yeah.
Dude,
I know.
you're not... like...
It's funny that a bunch of, like, white nationalists that were reading this when it first came out, they were like, yeah, we could stand up against the military, but their brain has already been severely fried by chemicals that were tested on them in Vietnam. And they're just like,
dude.
Well, that'll never happen again.
It's like, well, what about Vietnam? You know, they had very basic equipment and beat everybody out just by running off in the woods. And you're like, okay, well, you have been trained for a very specialized job because this is 21st century America.
Remember how they killed most of them by gas?
So you have no the fuck idea how to do this. Like,
I have watched the YouTube videos of us nuking people from space. I don't think this is going to be an issue for them. So,
the right is lost.
Taking away everyone's guns is the final straw for Earl and his buddies, who agree it's time for a new American revolution. They take themselves deep underground to hide from the system, the people who really run the government, the deep state, if you will.
The lizard people?
Which is, of course, in the book, run by Jews.
Oh, that's not what I meant by lizard people. I want to make that very fucking clear.
Those are Catholics.
I meant the 1% by lizard people.
As Earl and his good old boys bide their time and plan their attack against the government, they watch as the system unleashes a series of new laws, surveillance on every citizen, a passport to know who you are and where you are at all times, which is just a driver's license, and above all, it is now a hate crime for you as a white person to defend yourself against someone of another color. Because of this, the police are too afraid to monitor areas where there are a lot of minorities, right?
But in this weird racist, nightmare.
Because there hasn't...
It only goes one way, right?
There hasn't been a history as long as it's ever been recorded saying the opposite of that. Yeah, no, the police are not afraid of committing hate crimes. And sexual assault is also on the rise.
Videotape them and they don't give a shit. They just click them off. And they'll be in court like, oh, well, there's no footage. You're like, what the fuck? Why did he click it off? They're like, I don't know, but there's no footage.
You ever see the thing where they've got dash cams, so then they pop the hood? Like,
like, yeah, we took him back in. He was beaten half to death. We don't know what the fuck happened. There's no video evidence.
I had car troubles. Yeah,
so I pulled him over, and then a fucking radiator hose popped, man. And I'm not... Had to let that air out.
And sexual assault is also on the rise because all these liberal women think it would be racist to stop it from happening. This also implies that the only people who commit these crimes are, of course, non-whites. Well, Earl Turner and his buddies join a group calling themselves the Organization and launch a campaign of terrorist attacks throughout America. This feels like a lot of first draft shit. The system and... the Organization.
Yeah, fucking does.
That's a fucking synonym. And that's not me calling them terrorists. By the way, they identify as terrorists in the book like it's a good thing.
It's weird. Usually if they're white, they're not terrorists.
Yeah. They bombed the FBI headquarters with a truck bomb, sabotage the American economy, and carry out assassinations.
Holy shit, this is what these people are reading?
Yeah.
God damn.
The ones that can or are having it read to them by their cousin sister. And when the President of the United States gives a speech...
Proceed. Sorry.
I'll show you later.
Oh.
And when the President of the United States gives a speech saying racism is bad and the organization should be labeled, terrorists, Earl and his pals blow up the streets of Washington via mortar launchers from blocks away.
Wasn't the hardest label that one of those groups got a hate group, but they never got called a terrorist group?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And wasn't it by like a different government, not our government? Like, didn't the Proud Boys get labeled as a hate group by
the world
or something? Except for us.
By anyone who looked at them or was like, oh, are they out there trying to cause terror? Yeah. Oh, well, we have a word for that.
Like, when you go down to the waterfront and there's a bunch of them there, like, literally Mad Maxed out in gear yelling the N-word at people, and then they all have AR-15s, and they're just waiting to, like, Rittenhouse some people.
Yes, the gravy seals.
And you're like, that's...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. During an anti-racism parade on TV, Turner notices that there aren't any white people, and when a white person tries to join in, they're taken off to the side and beaten to death. There's even a point where a white cat walks by and somebody yells, "Someone get that honky cat!"
Okay, this is some boondock shit. Get the fuck out of here. This is not...
Now, it turns out there's another level to the organization, one much more secret in case there's any informants among them. The Order is in charge of the organization behind the scenes, and they recruit the best among them. Earl. The Order has been watching events unfold for a long time, as they've been around since the 1930s. Like those other guys.
Following.
Well, later, the organization hideout is raided by the FBI, but Earl is such a good shot that the rest of the members manage to get away while he himself holds them off. In the end, only Earl is caught.
Careful with that name. That drawl stuck in your brain for a second.
Earl? It's crazy. He, a white terrorist, not shot to death, but caught. He's then fled to an army
Thank God
base.
It's not like that in the actual future.
He's then fled to an army base where he's interrogated by an Israeli intelligence officer. Because, Jews. Anyway, the Order manages to rescue Earl after months of torture. And while he didn't give up the most crucial bits of information, Earl did let some things slip to the Israelis. And for that, the Order decides that he must be punished. But they will decide his fate at a later time. And while the FBI foolishly believes the organization to be eliminated, they have, in reality, grown larger than ever. The organization takes over Southern California and forces all the non-whites, Jews, and quote-unquote race traders, white people like me who didn't marry another white, to move out east.
Good luck with that. Fucking Southern California.
There's literally dozens of us. Anyone who refuses is beaten, shot, or lynched. There aren't enough bullets in America, son. Anyway, what this mass migration of non-whites does is raise crime in all the other places in America, leading to a majority of white people to quote-unquote wake up and move to the new white utopia that is Southern California.
Well, he's just doing like a weird Ayn Rand thing, isn't he?
Ayn Rand doesn't like him, ironically.
No, just the little. We're moving to the little sanctuary place that can't work.
You mean a really shitty dystopia becoming a utopia and everything?
Yeah.
Yeah. And none of them know how to grow anything.
She went to Business Owner Mountain, and everybody's happy, and they're going to White Boy Mountain, and
these guys are just moving to San Diego. Yeah.
Everybody's going to be assigned a wife. Like,
who knows how to grow corn? Fuck. Tales of what it was like to be a white minority are horrific, like the cult of black people that literally kidnapped and ate the whites. Now, while the organization has control of SoCal, they commandeer the Vandenberg Air Force Base, sending nuclear missiles into New York and Tel Aviv, which I'm sure are the places William Pierce thinks have the largest Jewish communities. It's weird to me that as much as William Pierce doesn't believe in the Holocaust, he just creates another Holocaust in the book. Anyway, after this, the organization roams the streets of Los Angeles, hanging lawyers, politicians, journalists, entertainers, anything that they feel is just too Jewy. This is the day of August 1st, 1993, what is thence known in later years as the Day of the Rope. And do they kill some innocents? Yeah, but hey, That's show business, baby. As Earl Turner puts it, the collateral damage is, quote, terrible yet absolutely necessary. But now the organization is left with a bunch of conservatives and libertarians, whom Earl Turner regards as, quote, businessmen, who let this happen in the first place. So how do you root out the true patriots from those who are just looking for safety from the genocide? You gather up all the food, and don't allow anyone to eat until they give you the admission price of one head from a non-white person. And while the influence of the organizations...
What if somebody's a true patriot, but they're just not in really good shape?
Survival of the fittest.
Okay.
I guess. I mean,
what if he's just a true patriot, but he's just like an accountant?
do you think this man was writing things down in his national allegiance or whatever the fuck journey, like his little, highlights, and he's sending it out there and people are questioning him? No, they're like, this is the greatest, most American thing I've ever read.
Like, I have like I'm okay. I use my body for work. I don't feel like I could just take like any random dude and like, take his head off.
God, no.
Like, so
no, fuck no.
Like, I don't feel like I'm down to the task.
Dude, look at me.
So you just have a bunch of like, like that's a very poor.
It is a poor decision.
Like,
I mean, didn't they? So they kicked out all the ones in Southern California, all the minorities, and anybody else who was a race traitor. They day of the rope, got rid of all the lawyers and everything else. Motherfucker, you're going to have to go out at least like 20, 50 miles outside of the city limits to try and find yourself a non-white. Like,
this is just unreasonable. Like,
all the food, Earl, all.
Look, man, fine. I'm trying to join your racist utopia here, but this is just unreasonable, man. You gotta adjust this.
Fucking autobiography of Malcolm X just falls out of his pocket. What's that, Jonathan? Nothing. And while the influence of the organization spreads throughout America, the whole world is watching. And of course, everyone sees this is the right thing to do. This causes a huge spike in anti-Semitism around the world.
And just like that.
Just like that. It was just leading by example. And in some countries, this means a total governmental collapse because their top officials are all part of the system. Places like Russia, France, and the Netherlands all crumbled to dust. Really weird choices he has here. However, the organization learns of one last all-out attack on them from the dying U.S. government, and the higher-ups of the order determined Earl Turner's punishment from when he let some information slip while he was interrogated by the Israelis. He is to fly a crop duster strapped with a nuclear bomb into the Pentagon.
Did they specify crop duster?
Yeah.
That's really dumb. Right? Like, why? Will you go on? Does he explain why he specified crop duster? Like,
I don't think he's seen any other plane in his life.
Fit with any plane will do.
Now calls it Pegasus.
If you just put the fucking thing on board, I guess. Like, I don't know.
If they have control of the entire like nuclear base of Southern California, and
like,
know how to have direct assaults, you think one of these guys can't fly a fucking plane?
Okay, let's give this Nazi racist piece of shit the benefit of the doubt here. Maybe crop dusters just have a side bin that you can just load a big heavy thing in with. A
nuclear bomb.
Yeah, hang on. That you can load something with a forklift easier than a regular plane. Maybe. Who fucking knows?
For all the questions we've raised, I think this is just one of the many that we'll have to turn a blind eye to, because none of this shit makes sense. Mortar launchers on the streets of Washington, D.C. from blocks away. Where? Mortars? The epilogue of the Turner Diaries summarizes how the world turned into the perfectly white planet we have today in the year 2099.
There's nothing going to be perfect about the planet if you let off that many nuclear fucking explosions, dude. Do you not know about Chernobyl, you fucking idiot?
The organization takes over Africa. Asia is uninhabitable due to nuclear warfare, and Puerto Ricans...
2 fucking nuclear warheads go off in the U.S. in different places of the fucking
one
U.S.
in Tel Aviv and one in New York.
Oh, okay.
But I think it's assumed that they just nuke all of Asia, like, well, who needs it?
We're not...
I guess. Oh, but here you go. Puerto Ricans, described as, quote, that repulsive mongrel race, are recolonized. The book ends thus. That means you're back in slavery.
Yeah, I got that.
Quote, just 110 years after the birth of the Great One, they mean Hitler, the dream of a white world finally became a certainty, and the order would spread its wise and benevolent rule over the earth for all time to come.
A lot of Puerto Ricans died in World War II.
Oh, now you know history.
A little bit. Poquito.
Unfortunately, the book sold relatively well, because of course it did. There are more racists out there than that believe this shit than you would imagine.
No.
Their Turner Diaries sold around 200,000 copies by the year 2000. And of course, the book's reviews were dismal.
Can we be hopeful and think that, like, maybe some people were buying it to just be like, let's read this fucked up shit?
Oh,
like,
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly,
like, you didn't buy that book.
No.
Okay.
Nope.
All right.
Absolutely not.
Okay, good.
I'm not having it in this fucking library. No.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. You can look at my signed copy of Mein Kampf. That's fine.
Signed by whomst?
Adolf Hitler. It was a gag gift. It says follow your dreams, and it's got like dots over the eyes that are hearts and shit. You know, Adolf, Elizabeth, Hitler. But that's nostalgia, not the Mein Kampf part. The gift part.
Jesus, dude.
But no, dude, I'm not reading this fucking book.
Yeah, no.
No.
Wait, so how'd you get the summary? Oh, you just read
there was somebody on YouTube who read through it and was giving all the best bits.
So, okay, I don't know. I feel like you should have read it.
No.
What do you think is going to fucking happen?
So
like, you read through the fucking, like, just pirate it? Hang on. No,
okay.
Shush.
Okay.
Let me have my turn. No, they'll fucking pirate it from online, make sure none of those fucking weirdos get any of that goddamn money, read through it so you know exactly what's there, and then we can dog on it that much harder, dude. Don't just go over a summary.
I've got quotes in here and shit.
Yeah, but what if somebody else interpreted it, like, not correctly, and then we're like...
No, they didn't. I will prove it to you.
I understand.
I understand, honey.
I would have appreciated.
Baby, I know. But from what I have heard from every source, not just like... just multiple different sites over the internet that everyone just says.
I mean, I'm not gonna fuck her.
No, well, yeah, there you go. They're just like, I thought it was gonna be like a couple people were like, I thought it was gonna be like fun bad, and it's not. It's just poorly written.
Yeah.
But then there's like other people who are like, I thought, what if it awakens something in me? A terrible beast.
Wow,
and then they read it and they're like, oh no, it's just a really poorly written book.
Who the fuck said that shit? They're like, damn, I can't wait till something else awakens my white nationalism. Like, but this ain't it. Like,
well, so the book's reviews were really fucking bad. Not because the book was racist. No, there have been plenty of racist books out there that have good reviews, unfortunately. 5 years before the Turner Diaries in 1973 was the French novel The Camp of the Saints by Jean Raspail about a dystopian future where Africans mass immigrate to France. It was a bullshit book, yes, but the critics agreed. It was regrettably still well written. For the Turner Diaries, however, the writing was shit, and everyone was happy to tear it apart. Like, everyone already knew it was a fucking Nazi book, so the critics had a time publishing excerpts to show just how bad the writing truly was. Here's a good example. Quote, I undressed, got a towel, and opened the door to the shower, and there was Catherine, wet, naked, and lovely, standing under the bare light bulb and drying herself. She looked at me without surprise and said nothing. I stood there for a moment, and then, instead of apologizing and closing the door again, I impulsively held my arms to Catherine. Hesitantly, she stepped toward me.
Like a fucking weird robot.
Nature took her course. That's a sex scene. And although the book was torn apart for its horrible prose, and William...
Man, we're judging him too harshly. For a guy like this, that's probably sex to him.
Oh, I'm done. Although the book was torn apart for its horrible prose, and William Pierce quickly gained a reputation as one of the worst published authors of the 20th century, he of course still managed to have an audience. The term Day of Rope is thrown around by white supremacists as a day to look forward to a frightening number of times if you look for it on Twitter or Facebook. And to a select number of white supremacists, this book became their terrorist Bible. But we'll get to that a little later on. Right now in 1978, after the book's release, William Pierce tried to claim that the National Alliance was a educational organization, and that he and his property in West Virginia should be tax exempt. And of course it didn't fucking work. 7 years later, in 1985, he tried to do the same thing again, this time setting up $95,000 in cash to create the Cosmotheist Community Church. And this time it actually worked.
Did he make Nazi church?
Yeah, totally tax exempt.
A tax exempt Nazi church?
Yeah, but once it was found out that it was just the new headquarters for the National Alliance, it no longer was tax exempt.
Oh, gotcha.
They don't have any... I think their whole quote-unquote religion is just Nazi shit. Pretty much, like, there's no actual thing behind it.
No, this is about heritage. Look at the runes.
There are a lot of fucking runes.
I know.
Doing the research, there were a lot of runes. In 1982, after 25 years of marriage...
What are you doing with that Celtic tattoo, you motherfucker?
Stop! No, I'm Norwegian. It doesn't cause... no? What are you listening to? In 1982, after 25 years of marriage, Patricia and William had divorced. Now, while I can't seem to find a reason for this, I do find it interesting that very same year in 1982, William Pierce was married to his second wife, an office worker for the National Alliance named Elizabeth. From here, Pierce would have a string of other marriages. And while I can't account for them all, it certainly seems to be an issue with infidelity. Because he only stays married to Elizabeth for a few years until 1985.
Who's fucking him?
Dude, are you kidding me? He's set up a whole fucking thing. A whole compound. And he's written a little book.
It's a whole Nazi fucking thing. That just makes it worse. Who's fucking him?
Other Nazis.
Jesus, God.
But, that's always the whole thing, too, is, like, I've read stuff about, like, police talking to, like, that were, like, around when The Godfather, the book, came out. And they said the crime changed from, like, just a bunch of, like, random shootings and shit to all of a sudden they're like, no, let them think on it and shit. And then it kind of, like, went back into a wave of, like cruelty. And then once the Godfather movie came out, then all of a sudden everyone does it again, where everyone thinks they're fucking Marlon Brando, and they're just like, no, yeah, let it be cool. And, like, I feel it's the same thing with American History X and the fucking guy who plays, like, the ringleader to Edward Norton's little
that wasn't
group.
the message of the fucking movie.
I know that, but neither was it with The Godfather. It's not pro-crime.
Yeah, but no, that's not fucking fair. You got to sit through all the Godfather shit. That shit puts you to fucking sleep. It's so goddamn long. American History X, pretty fucking, like...
Yeah, but you know what I'm talking about with that guy who's, like, so well read and listens to, like, fucking Beethoven as he talks about Edward Norton, like, yes, let's fuck up an Asian grocery store. Like, but I feel like people are turning onto William Pierce in that same way, where they're like, he's so refined, and it's like, he's not refined.
I just don't feel like American History X is a good example, because, I mean, you start having flashes to the current day where he's in prison and learning that what he's doing is fucking stupid.
Yeah, of course.
Actually, like, middle of the goddamn movie.
I know, but like, I mean, they always portray character, like, the Nazi ringleaders as that. And, I mean, they did it for The Green Room, with Patrick Stewart doing the same sort of shit. And I'm sure that it's always been like that, where it's like, I'm the ringleader, and therefore I have books on the shelves that I've
it's
never
kind of
read,
thing where nobody gets why, like, Tyler Durden is not good in Fight Club.
Yeah.
And then they become incels.
Yes.
Okay.
So who's going to fuck him? People who didn't understand American History X. So he's only...
Is this an elaborate pussy getting? Like...
I hope not.
Because it seems insane until you look at it from that lens.
So he only stays with his second wife, Elizabeth, for a few years until 1985, when in 1986 he marries a Hungarian woman named Olga. Now, I don't know the ethnicities on his two previous marriages.
Nobody does sexy names like the Hungarians.
But he seems to get a taste for Hungarian women right here. Once he and Olga divorce in 1990, Pierce meets a woman named Zuzana through an ad in a Hungarian magazine that is specifically for arranging international marriages.
Oh, shit. So he was...
So they marry the next year in 91. But she leaves him in 96.
Wow, he couldn't hold on to wives he paid for, homie.
Finally, his fifth and final marriage
told me that.
is with another Hungarian woman. Don't know the circumstances of this one.
Hungarian mail-order wives, and they still leave. They're like, where are you going to go, bitch? I fucking ordered you here to the U.S., and then they're just like, I don't fucking care. I'll live on the streets. I'm done with this shit.
Honestly,
like,
so I've only known, like, I don't know anyone who's actually done mail-order brides personally, but my mom, who was...
Is that even a thing?
Huh? Oh, it's
anymore?
a thing. Oh, yeah, but it's all online. I actually got curious.
Yeah,
and I
like
looked-
most other terrible things.
No, I actually was curious and I looked it up. Would they probably just take my money? Probably.
Just curious.
But it was like $2,000 to $3,000 for like just a random Russian
That's
woman.
it?
Right? But they're just gonna fucking leave as soon as they don't. They're gonna come over with their boyfriend. Like
So they come over with their boyfriend, they're going to marry you, and then they're going to...
yeah, my mom. So she worked in a dentist office that was smack in the middle of downtown
Oh,
Portland.
good. I thought you were going to be like, my mom was...
Once my
gonna
dad
order
bought
a
my
ride.
mother, no, but she met plenty of mail order wives because don't forget this is also Portland, which is a huge center for sex trafficking as well.
No.
So she would be like
Portland?
she would be the first she'd be like the first American dentist on like Vietnamese teeth and shit like that, you know? And she said that there was one couple that like when she first met this lady in the mid 90s, she couldn't speak a lick of English. The dude was an older white guy that's just like, you know, like, Tiana, let's go. And she just like bows and like is very like, okay. And then like, 10, 15 years later, she's chatting it up with my mom and he's like opening the door like, Tiana, let's go. She's just like, Tiana, I think he's waiting. And she's like, oh, fuck him. He can wait, you know?
So, like, you think one $3,000 bill is going to cover all the labor of dealing with your bitch ass? Like, no, absolutely
No.
not. Like,
So this fifth and final marriage with his
Jesus
last
Christ,
of
I could burn
three,
down a strip club in a night.
last of three Hungarian women named Irina, whom he marries in 97 until his death. Fifth time's the try, as they say. Now, throughout his life, William Pierce had many different aspirations. Among them, his own printing press, calling it National Vanguard Books. It would not only print Pierce's own novels, such as the Turner Diaries and later on Hunter, as we'll get into in a minute, but also his Nazi magazine Attack, which later became Resistance, and on one occasion, a comic book called The Saga of White Will, of which there was only one issue. I looked it up. They still sell it. But what's crazy is they're also like, okay, you can buy one copy for $5, or no, it's like one copy of White Will for like $20, or for $100, you get 5 copies, and then you can hand them out to your friends. It's like
Oh, wow.
On top of this, William Pierce was also a music magnate. Resistance Records, originally founded in Canada in 1993, was later bought by Willis Carto and William Pierce before Pierce bought all of Carto's remaining shares in 1997. Now, while everyone would know to stay away from his label, what Pierce did instead was make Resistance Records the parent company and buy a bunch of smaller labels using their name. So people would know to look out for Resistance, but not, Orthodontist Records or whatever,
Yeah.
which he owns. So many of these labels bought up black metal bands. One that William Pierce was hot for and later obtained was Simophane Records, so he could gain the distribution rights for black metal legend Burzum.
Yep. Yep.
I was so happy when I found that out.
And you can look up Varg Vilkernes on YouTube, and he's still a fuckhead.
He's still a Nazi.
Like,
Oh man! As soon as I was done with this, I started flipping through Lords of Chaos. Like
you were like,
I was very happy to find that out. Like,
yeah, they tend to like fucking neo-Nazis tend to like latch onto any kind of aggressive sounding music that younger people like, and they will fucking just like jam their shit in there into a scene.
well, and you know what's really funny about that too is that your whole I'm a Nazi thing. That's like that always has to go with this weird aggression thing that pretty much tells you that it's just pseudo machoism. Because why isn't there like, not to pick on, because it's like, oh, I'm a Nazi and what do I like? I like metal. But it's like, where are the fucking power ballads, I mean, not to step on Otis Cochran and 3 Bigots over here, but,
Honest Cochran.
and their, what was it? Hootenanny? What did they call it?
I don't know. We looked them up.
Hatin'
They're
Hatin'
They
Nanny.
called it the Hatin'
The Hatin' Nanny. Not to pick on them or anything, but I'm not listening to their music. I'm not giving the clicks on YouTube. Anyway, now while Pierce was playing businessman, he did produce a lesser-known second novel in 1989. where the pseudonym Andrew MacDonald once more took the stage. Thankfully, his last book, this is the story of Hunter. Oscar Jaeger, which is German for hunter, drives around Washington, D.C. with a rifle, picking off interracial couples in parking lots. Commercially, he's seen as a local hero. However, he's one day confronted by the FBI agent in charge of his case. Luckily, he's a fan of Oscar's work, and as a matter of fact, wants Oscar to work for him. Using his possible imprisonment...
In the FBI? No way.
Yeah.
That's so unrealistic.
Using his possible imprisonment as blackmail, the FBI agent has Oscar hunt down certain targets within Washington that he wants gone. Incidentally, these targets are either Israeli intelligence or other FBI agents, except they're Jewish, so it's okay. Between assassination hits, Oscar joins a group of like-minded white supremacists that look to put one of their own on TV as a fake televangelist who will slowly start integrating Nazi teachings into their sermons, brainwashing the public. Hey, remember when William Pierce had the Cosmotheist Church? This might, maybe this is what they were up to. But as the FBI agent becomes more and more power-hungry, he eventually places a hit on the televangelist himself. Choosing between the possibility of a Nazi future or his country, Oscar kills the FBI agent and goes underground with his group of racists. Now, Pierce, after the Turner Diaries, was sad that his book was still being seen as sci-fi instead of something tangible that could and will happen.
No. I'm actually going to say, I'm going to, like, same thing as, like, you know, when we talk about, like, Star Wars versus Star Trek?
Yeah.
You know, and, like, where Star Wars should be, like, more classified as fantasy. And Star Trek should be sci-fi.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know, this is clearly just racist fantasy. Normally in sci-fi, like you got to explain this shit.
Yeah, you actually like, have to. It has to make sense.
You got to break it down. It's got to make sense. There's actually got to be some like kind of theory involved.
I mean, why tell me if a lightsaber is so hot, it supposedly cauterizes the wounds and therefore no blood. Why in episode 4? Does he cut off that one alien's arm and it's bleeding?
Well, I don't have to be that much.
Are you telling me that race has a...
No. I don't have to be that much of a douche about it. I can just be like, as far as that argument, I can just be like, why the fuck are there space wizards? Like, yeah, it's fantasy. Fuck it. Like,
because of midichlorians.
No.
So with Hunter, Pierce made it more...
racist fantasy, not racist sci-fi.
Now, it's more realistic. I wouldn't say it's either of those things. This could happen.
The racism is realistic, but that's about it.
So with Hunter, he made it more realistic by setting it in the present day. Somehow realistic to him that a large part of the dialogue in Hunter is just talking about Jews, like, well, what do we do about them? Also, the book is dedicated to Joseph Paul Franklin, a serial killer who murdered 22 minorities around the South. This guy is the reason that Hustler magazine creator Larry Flint was confined to a wheelchair.
Is that a serial killer or just a mass murderer from the South?
Oh, no, he was specifically going after...
yeah, I know, but that was my point. Anyway, let's go on. Yes.
It was a joke, but unfortunately, it hit way too close to reality. It was no longer funny. After a failed assassination attempt in 1978 with Larry Flint, because Joseph Paul Franklin was mad about interracial sex being shown in Hustler. That's why he shot Larry Flint. I always thought that he was just confined to a wheelchair because of just, I don't know, health.
You're aware it's going to be shown elsewhere, right? I mean, there's no stopper on this.
It's 1978. There's like 2 magazines. I'm a proud member. I have a proud membership with Jugs, who has been around since 1955.
Motherfucker, we don't need phones to distribute this shit.
Now, as I mentioned before, the Turner Diaries had its fair share of dangerous fans. In 1984, a group calling themselves The Order killed a talk show host in Denver, as well as committed several robberies where they later sent the money to Pierce just because they loved his work.
We're still in fiction land, right?
No. Oh. This is how he has impacted our history.
Oh, wonderful.
The guy who killed the radio show host was caught in a shootout with police on Whidbey Island that turned into a fire when a cop threw a smoke grenade into the hideout, where he was then burned to death, turning him into a martyr for the neo-Nazi cause.
How tragic.
Yep. David Copeland bombed black, Asian, and gay communities in 1999.
Wow. Hate the Triforce.
Yeah, and quoted the Turner Diaries while interrogated by the police. Most recently, during the siege on the U.S. Capitol building on January 6, 2021, it was pointed out by neo-Nazi historian Kathleen Belew the similarities between the would-be terrorists and the events of the Day of Rope in the Turner Diaries. But most famously, while Pierce tried to show just how real his story was by telling you how the characters hooked up a shower in their bunker or put a radio together, one thing it also did was tell you how to make bombs. In 1994, President Clinton introduced a bill that would ban the sale of assault rifles for 10 years. To a man named Timothy McVeigh, this was the beginning of the system's rule in the Turner Diaries. On the morning of April 19th, 1995, at 9:02 a.m., Timothy McVeigh parked a truck in front of the Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, right underneath the daycare center where employees dropped off their kids, and detonated the car bomb once he was a safe distance away, killing 168 people. A bomb similarly used in the Turner Diaries during Earl Turner's attack on FBI headquarters at 9 a.m. And yes, we know for a fact that Timothy McVeigh was directly inspired by this fucking book. He loved to talk about this stupid thing. When he was arrested, there were highlighted pages of the Turner Diaries in his fucking car. Like just quotes he thought was great. You know, words to live by.
So whoever's assigned to his defense, just like going through it, like he highlighted the fucking bomb making pages, the fucking time.
We're gonna say insanity. And did he
You're
feel,
white, it might go through.
Did he feel bad about killing a bunch of innocent people, especially children? Yeah, a little. But just like the fucking Turner Diary said about the Day of Rope, collateral damage was inevitable. And that's exactly what Timothy McVeigh wanted. He wanted to start, to him, the inevitable race war that would eventually lead to a pure white nation. One of the pages from the Turner Diaries they found on him had this phrase highlighted, quote, "But the real value of all our attacks today lies in the psychological impact, not in the immediate casualties." When asked if he approved of the Oklahoma City bombing, which he very much was the reason for, William Pierce said, quote, No, I don't. I've said that over and over again.
Why the fuck would you even ask him that?
That I do not approve of the Oklahoma City bombing because the United States is not yet in a revolutionary situation. He basically just said it wasn't the right time for this particular terrorist act. That's all.
Dude, why, like, don't ask him.
Timothy
You know
McVeigh,
damn well what he thinks.
Timothy McVeigh should have waited till later, was basically what he was saying. While people rightly continued to call William Pierce a neo-Nazi throughout his life, he was against the title. He said, quote, "I admire many of the things that Hitler wrote, many of the programs and policies that he instituted in Germany, but we do not blindly copy anyone else's policies or programs." Weren't you in the American Nazi? I feel like Nazi and National Socialist was in a lot of movements you were in. Sometime in June of 2002, William Pierce was diagnosed with a cancer that spread throughout his entire body. A few weeks later, on July 23rd, 2002, William Luther Pierce III died of kidney failure at his home in Hillsborough, West Virginia. Immediately afterwards, the membership to the National Alliance took a sharp decline. Since then, the leadership role has been filled by a pedophile. The National Alliance still manages to push out media every so often to this day, but nothing.
What's the pedophile's name?
You know what? I don't. Go ahead and pause it. I'll talk about it. Why, his name is Kevin Alfred Strom, and he he said that he clicked on some spam mail, so 10 pictures of child porn got accidentally downloaded to his computer.
10 only? The spam mail, that's all that got downloaded. Okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Also, right. I think that this is important because I have heard this before. This is according to Wikipedia. The statement, "To learn who rules over you, simply find out who you are not allowed to criticize," was falsely attributed to Voltaire, the French Enlightenment philosopher. However, the phrase is believed to originate from an essay by Strom first published in 1993, "All America Must Know the Terror That Is Upon Us." He wrote, quote, "To determine the true rulers of any society, all you must do is ask yourself this question: who is it that I am not permitted to criticize?" So if you hear somebody talking about a Voltaire quote and it sounds like that, it's going to sound, like, ooh, spoopy because it's, it's Voltaire, but it's not. It's actually a racist and pedophile.
Clear diddler. Very bad excuse.
Very clear diddler.
At that point, just start thinking about your defense, man. Don't keep making bullshit.
He apparently pled guilty, and then like midway through, he wanted to change it to not guilty, and the judge was just like,
No take backsies.
Yeah, that's not how this works.
This is a federal court. There are no take backsies, sir.
Oh, shit. So, the National Alliance still manages to push out media every so often to this day, but nothing that has had an impact like the Turner Diaries. The last time the National Alliance was mentioned on any kind of national scale is when they released a first-person shooter in 2002 that had you run around and kill racist caricatures of black people.
Oh, shit.
During the game, over the music that Resistance Records craps out, can be heard the droning speeches of William Turner. I did watch someone speedrun it in 2 minutes, though, so it's not a very good game. By far, the most tragic thing about this episode is that this is unfortunately a success story for William Pierce. He wrote the worst book, has an organization filled with the worst people, was himself one of the worst people who sadly died in not enough pain.
This shit does not make sense.
And yet his works, the Turner Diaries specifically, have gone on to inspire at minimum 40 terrorist attacks, resulting in the deaths of at least 200 people. And while I haven't read it, Sins of My Father, Growing Up with America's Most Dangerous White Supremacist by William Pierce's son Kelvin shows just how much one can break the cycle. Raised to be a racist, Kelvin got out when he could and never looked back. So Kelvin Pierce, we give you the biggest gold star there is. Good job, buddy. My sources today. I read the most hateful book ever written by Thought Slime YouTube 2020 and Wikipedia.
Oh, okay, cool.
Oh, do you know that one?
Of course.
Oh, I don't know.
Every leftist likes Thought Slime. Everybody should go listen to Thought Slime right now.
You fucking cuck.
Yeah.
But no, it's look, I feel like a lot of I myself have actually known, go figure. Growing up in Oregon, I've actually known a couple of Nazi youth type people who broke the cycle. I've never known anyone while they were still a Nazi youth, but people who had stories of like, yeah, I was ingrained, and they got out of it. And if they could do it, trust me, by no means are these the smartest people that I knew. I got out of
Salem, and
and one out of Pennsylvania. Yeah.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is, kid, if you're listening to this now, it's not too late for you.